Welcome to the Getting Started with Publishing class. This class will discuss cited reference searching, ULRICs, impact factors, and eigenfactors. I'm your instructor. My name is Amy Blevins, and I'm the Education and Instructional Technology Librarian at Lapis Library. If you have any questions about the course material, please feel free to call me at 744-2229, or you can email me at blevinsa@ecu.edu. After completing this class, you should be able to identify possible journals in which to publish your research, define and locate impact factors and eigenfactors, and find out who has cited your work. Don't forget to print the cover sheet for this class. It contains lots of information on the different resources discussed in this video, as well as links to further information. This video is an introduction to the basic concepts involved with getting started with publishing. There are video tutorials and help sheets on the class website, so if you need more information on using a particular resource, you'll want to refer to those. The URL is listed at the bottom of this slide. There are a couple of things that you might want to consider when deciding where to publish your research. The first is to figure out which journals cover the information that you want to publish. A lot of times there are several journals that'll cover the subject you're interested in. After that, you want to find out which journals are more relevant or influential to your field. There are a few different things to look at. One is whether or not the journal is peer-reviewed, which means that a group of people in your field will review your research article before it's published. The second would be bibliometrics, which includes impact factors, eigenfactors, and cited reference searching. And the final thing you might consider is accessibility. One of the places that you might start looking at in order to find journal information is ULRICs, which is linked from the Lapis Electronic Resources page. ULRICs is a database that's completely dedicated to journal information. You can find out whether or not journals are peer-reviewed, abstracting and indexing information, which is important because the more databases that index a particular journal means that there will be more access points to that journal. If a journal isn't indexed by any database, it could be hard for people to find the materials that are published within that journal. Publisher information, which is important because that's where you're going to find out the requirements for publishing an article in that journal, as well as editor information and things like that. You can find out which journals are covering a certain subject by doing a search in ULRICs. And you can locate impact factors and eigenfactors. This is actually through a link in ULRICs that goes out to another database called Journal Citation Reports. Impact factors are a quantitative measure of the frequency with which the average article published in a given scholarly journal has been cited in a particular year or period. It's often used in citation analysis. It's a little confusing, so I've put a diagram here that shows you a little bit more of how the impact factor is figured out. They look at all of the articles that came out in 2008 that cited articles published in 2006 and 2007. And they divide that by the total number of articles published in a particular journal in 2006 and 2007. And then that number is the impact factor. This diagram is a simplification of the mathematical formula used to figure out an impact factor. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about how the impact factor is figured out, you might want to look at the article by McVeigh and Mann, which is listed in your cover sheet for this class. Impact factors are a little bit controversial. You can look at the two articles that I have listed on your cover sheet, other than the McVeigh article, to find out a little bit more about that. Eigenfactors are another bibliometric measure similar to impact factors. The eigenfactor is another way to rank journals based on their influence in the field. It tries to get around some of the issues that make impact factors controversial. There are a few differences between the two. One of the most important differences is the journals that have eigenfactors versus the journals that have impact factors. Not all journals have impact factors. In fact, only journals that are recorded by ISI will have an impact factor. So if you can't find an impact factor, you might want to look and see if it has an eigenfactor. Another difference is that while your impact factor looks at citations from the last 2 years, eigenfactors look at citations from the last 5 years, so they're looking at a wider pool of data. I don't know that I would say that one is better than the other, but if you'd like to find out more about eigenfactors, you can check out the webpage Why Eigenfactor. I have the URL listed at the bottom of this slide, and it's also included in the cover sheet for this class. If you want to find the impact factor or eigenfactor for a given journal, you have 2 places that you can look. The first is Journal Citations Reports, which is the database that's put out by ISI. This is easier if you want to compare impact factors for journals within a certain area. It's a little tricky if you're trying to search for a particular journal. The second is Ulrichs. And again, this is easier if you want to find the impact factor for a particular journal, and they actually link out to Journal Citation Reports. It's just a slightly easier interface. Both of these are accessible from the electronic resources page. There's also cited reference searching, and as I mentioned before, this is another way to determine the impact that a journal has in the field, or the impact that your particular article has had in the field. You're basically looking to see how many times it's been cited by other articles. There are 4 resources that you can use to find out who's citing your work or any other article. The first is Web of Science. In fact, it's probably the most respected of the resources that I'm going to list. The second is Google Scholar. You'll notice that if you look up an article in Web of Science and in Google Scholar, a lot of times the number of articles citing that work is a little bit higher in Google Scholar. Google Scholar covers materials that might not be covered by Web of Science, and that's one reason the number could be higher. The other reason is that I think Google Scholar looks at conference abstracts and proceedings and things like that. You can also look at Medline via Ovid for cited references. Keep in mind, though, that the only articles they include are articles that occur in journals at Ovid. And last, there's CINAHL via EBSCO, which is the Nursing and Allied Health Database. And again, this one isn't as accurate as Web of Science or even Google Scholar, but it's another place that you can look if you didn't find your article in the first 2 resources. And the last thing I want to talk about are open access journals. Open access journals are scholarly journals that operate under a non-traditional publishing model. They are free online scholarly journals available to anyone with internet access, unlike traditional scholarly journals, which tend to be a little expensive and you have to get through either a personal subscription or through your access to a library. Open access journals are often peer-reviewed, just like journals in the traditional publishing field. If you want to find more information on open access and other scholarly communication issues, you might want to check out the Scholarly Communication LibGuide. And I have the URL listed here as well as in your packet. This concludes the introduction to getting started with publishing. If you want more information, of course, you'll want to refer to your cover page that I've included, as well as the help sheets and tutorials listed on the class page.